What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the first of many to come of Java tutorials. So in these tutorials, you're going to learn the very basics from the beginning. I'm talking about like you know absolutely nothing about Java, and those are the only requirements, so I think you fit them. But you know, the main reason I'm doing these tutorials is because when I was also, like you, a noob in Java, there are not too many good sources to learn. I mean, the new Boston, he's definitely a good source. That's where I learned most of my Java. But the problem with him is he didn't really go in depth as much as he should have. Now, I'm assuming that most of you have absolutely no experience in coding in general, so most people do choose Java as the beginner language because it is quite easy relatively to its counterparts like C++ or the basis of them all, C itself. So yeah, Java, it's a really good language. It is an object-oriented programming language, so that it will teach you the basics of that. It has a very simple grammar, very easy to understand, and it pretty much runs on every single platform imaginable. So now just a little background on Java itself, the language. So a guy by the name of James Gosling made it a long time ago and released it in 1995 when he was part of Sun Microsystems before it got moved over to Oracle. And since then it has evolved tremendously, becoming into what it is today. So let's get started. Now if you haven't already downloaded the 3 essentials to programming, depending on how fast your internet, it should take less than like 10 minutes. But you are going to need the JDK, the JRE, and some sort of IDE. So first things first, the JDK is the Java Development Kit, and judging by its name, a development kit for Java, it was created by the Oracle Corporation, and it was made specifically for developers to help them write in Java. Now, it would take hours to go over each individual thing that this includes, but just to say things very quickly, if the JDK did not exist, it would be very hard for you or me to write in Java. Now the JRE is just an offset of the JDK. It's technically part of the JDK, but it's the Java runtime environment. It's just a set of like software tools, again, to help developers code in Java. And the last is the IDE, the Integrated Development Environment. This is just a program that helps you write programs so you aren't stuck in Notepad like they used to back in the 80s. So now that you've downloaded the JDK, the JRE, and Eclipse, which is an IDE, open up Eclipse, and selecting the workspace is just selecting where everything's going to be saved. Just name it whatever you want, but workspace is conventional. So now we have this fresh, crisp, blank slate for us to write on, to expand our knowledge. So, let's get started. For the Package Explorer, just go over here, and right click on it, select New, then select Java Project, and just name it whatever you want. For this instance, we're going to be calling it Learning Java. Now click on the arrow to open up all of the contents of Learning Java, and do the same for source. Now we're going to make our first class file. So in order to do this, right click on source, select new, then select class, and we're going to make our first class, and we're going to name this main class. Now just as a convention of typing with Java, all of your classes start with the capital letter. So we're going to call this main class, and every single new word begins with a capital letter. So instead of typing class with a lowercase c, we type class with a uppercase C, and this makes it much easier to read. So we're going to finish that, and as you can see, it already created the public class for us. So before I explain everything, we're just going to write the program first, and as most programming or coding classes go, if you're ever taking a coding class in high school or in college, they pretty much start every single class with the Hello World program, because it is quite simple, and I guess it gives you the legitimacy of calling yourself a programmer, because you know, once you've made your first program, you're already a programmer. So let's type it. Tab in, and we're going to type public static void main parentheses, and then you're going to type capital S string, and then args, ARGS, and then brackets, and then out of that we're going to press an open brace. And the cool thing with an IDE, or in this instance Eclipse, if you type in open brace and then just press enter, it'll automatically type in the next closing brace. So we've just made our main class. Now the main class is important because it is the first method that is run when you start a program. So when you click that run or that batch file, the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to look for the main class and execute anything that is inside of it. So in this instance, we're going to use a built-in Java method to display something to the console. And the console just pretty much displays what's happening in the code. So we're going to type system dot out dot print line. Now this method was created by the Java developers for us to use, which was so nice of them, thank you. And this method takes a string as a parameter. Now a parameter is just like what the method uses in order to execute. Now a string is one of the many data types that Java uses, and the string is used to represent text instead of numbers or just single characters. So if we wanted to, we could write anything we want in here and it will be represented as a string, and in order to dictate that this is a string, we're using the quotation marks. Now with this, we could write anything inside of here and it will be considered a string. This is a string. Michael's a string, that's my name. Leonardo DiCaprio finally won his fucking Oscar, that's a string. As long as it is inside these quotation marks, it is considered a string by Java. So let's type something out so we can be like, alright, hello world. And of course I spelled hello wrong. Now, in order to execute this program, what we're going to do is right click on main class, select run as, and then Java application. And as we can see down in the console, it has printed out hello world. Alright, now let's go over what these keywords mean. So cool enough for us, Java makes the keywords purple and bold to help us clearly distinguish this from the rest of the text. So let's start with public. So when they're creating Java, they wanted to make the keywords as relatable to real life as possible so that it's easily understood. Now, as you can assume what public means, public means that this class, which we named main class, is public to any other class if we wanted to call it. Now you may not understand what that means literally because we haven't gotten into any other objects or things that we could call this class from. Just try and comprehend that public means it's accessible by anything else. Now class. Class can be loosely defined, but most literally it's just a template. It's just the blueprint, as many people like to put it, which we use to code all our stuff on. And from this class, we could build individual objects. And we'll get into that in later videos. So we know what public means. Now static. Now I'm gonna try my best to make you understand what static means, because I didn't learn what static actually meant until like 3 months into coding. And I was pretty dumbfounded as to how I didn't understand it before, because it is quite a simple idea. But with the current information we know, which is barely anything, it is quite confusing. So static pretty much means that you don't have to instantiate another object in order to use anything that's inside that object. So let me just use an example. I'm just doing this to help explain what this means. I'm going to create another class, and I'm going to call it fruit. Oh, let's not forget to make F capital because that's a convention in Java. So we're in fruit. Now I'm going to make a public static string apple, and I'm going to initialize that as just apple. Okay, so in this fruit class, which is entirely different from the main class, I created a public. Remember, public means it's accessible by anything, by any other class, and static means we don't have to instantiate this object in order to call this value. So in doing that, I could just do this. Instead of typing hello world, I could type fruit dot apple. So fruit is a class. In order to access anything inside this fruit class, we have to use the period, aka also known as a dot operator, to access anything that is inside this class. So we can access this string by using the dot operator because it is static. So when we click run, it'll print out apple to the console. Now if it wasn't static, we'd have to do something completely different. So if we took out static from here, it'd just be public. So now if we were to type in fruit dot, it doesn't show up because it's not static. But in order to access it, we have to create an instance of that object, hence the word instantiate. So in order to do this, we have to create an object of fruit and then use that object to call it. And this is called instantiating an object. So first we do the name of that object, and then we could name it whatever we want. In this case, we're going to call it Leo for Leonardo, and we're going to initialize it as a new fruit. Now, don't mind what new means. What this pretty much says is saying we're going to make a new object of type fruit, and we're going to name it Leo. Now, since this object is instantiated as a type of fruit, we could type in Leo.apple, and now we could access that variable because we instantiated the object fruit in order to access its variable. So yeah, today we went over what public means, what class means, what static means. I hope you understand what static means. If not, you're definitely going to learn it within the coming videos. And I wasn't expecting to get into creating objects from different classes in the first video, but I hope you understand it. It may not come to you at the time being, but don't worry, it will get to you. It just does take some time because coding is not that easy as some people may say. But that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely subscribe for more videos. I'm definitely going to be making a shit ton more. So, till next time guys, peace.